Yeah, Sunday. Yeah.
Looking forward to the day. Well, okay. Well, first off, welcome.
Thank you.
And just give you a quick summary. And first off, if you'd like to identify yourself to the can,
Sure.
tell us who you are.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Chastang, and I'm a resident of Bowie. I live right down the street on Elite Street, and I walked here today.
Oh, good for you. All right. Well, what's going to happen this morning is this will be about a 15-minute interview. Each council member will ask a question of you. And like I say, it'll take about 15 minutes. The questions are really designed to get us a feel for who you are and what you think about some of the things going on in the city. You should know that the entire process is being filmed, and it will go on Bowie Cable TV after all of the interviews are done.
Okay.
You know, we're a very transparent organization here. We just want to make sure everybody sees everything we've done. Your 15 minutes will begin with the first question. I would just suggest to you that there are a number of questions, so answer discipline and time discipline is a matter for you to deal with as you see appropriate. And then at the conclusion of this, we'll give you a couple of minutes to leave us with whatever thought you wanted to help with it. And with that, I'm going to start the questions with Mr. Estelle.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
This question is specific to District 3. The Sears location at Bowie Town Center is closing. The owners of the property are planning a mixed-use development on the site. What are your thoughts on the matter?
It's interesting because I attended the meeting, and I've been talking to some of the small business owners in the area. And I guess one of the things that I'm very close to in the Bowie Town Center are the small businesses. And it hurts when some of the small businesses go under. So what I'd like to see is more small businesses. I like the idea for the hotel. I like the idea for mixed use. And I really like an idea that someone brought up at the meeting about having some entertainment there. The apartment buildings, I wasn't fixed on that idea, but I'd be willing to hear more of what the company would have to say.
Okay. Mr. Marcos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for being here and your interest today.
Thank you.
I have a two-part question. Pay attention to the second part because you did answer some of that already.
Okay.
How do you feel about going forward with residential and commercial development in Bowie? And what do you think the relationship between the county and Bowie should be with regards to development?
Okay. The second one's an interesting question. As far as what I'd like to see happen in Bowie, I would like Bowie to grow and to become a better city, not necessarily a bigger city, but a better city. And I guess some of the broader idea I have of Bowie is getting maybe a couple of more industries in, but new and different green industries, because I think that one of the things that's happening in Bowie that I've seen is that we're getting a lot of development coming in, and a lot of it is mixed use, it's condos, it's that. But I know that we only have maybe 1, 2, or 3 large employers, and I think that now with the way the economy is changing, maybe we can look to get and try to attract more businesses to come to Bowie. Not necessarily stay and, set up a whole city around that, but have them come and have people who live in Bowie work in that industry. And then with the second part, as far as Bowie and Prince George's, I know the relationship is really tight. I would like it a little bit looser so that Bowie would have more oversight as far as some of the things that we're doing in our city. And I think one of the, I know development is a big part of it, but also recreation and environmental issues. I think that's a big part of it as well, as far as something that we should have separate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Terrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Chastang, for being here.
Thank you.
My question is, what do you think is the most important issue in Bowie, and how do you plan to make improvements?
As far as the most important issue in Bowie, one of the, I don't know if there's only one. I know transportation is an important issue, and transportation has been a bit of a problem because of lack of public transportation. And the other thing is we have to keep looking after our roads because our roads are constantly being damaged because of the rains and the storms. So that's one of the issues. Another one of the issues is I feel that a lot of people aren't looking at environmental issues because I think Bowie has, just to give you a little bit of background, I'm originally from Los Angeles and I've always lived in big cities. And now since I've been living in Bowie, I've been seeing that the air is very clear. You've got a lot of wildlife, you've got areas set aside for like wildlife. But I think that if we don't keep working and sort of hammering that into our constituents, people will forget that. I mean, we've got foxes in the park over there. I've seen them a couple of times. I've seen deer, I've seen all sorts of wildlife, but I don't know if that's something that other people know about Bowie. And I think that's one of the things that we have to kind of put out there. So maybe the other thing would be that the most important thing is letting the world know about Bowie, but not having them stay, if you know what I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms.
Chastang.
for coming out this morning.
Thank you.
My question to you, or statement to you this morning, is it is my opinion that local government is the most important level of government. Explain why you either agree with me or disagree.
Okay, I would say that I have to disagree. When I lived in Toronto, I worked with a city councillor there, and I was an executive assistant. And we found that, and I'd also worked with other politicians, but I found that the city level was the closest to where people needs are really being felt, especially, you know, with Social Security, with housing, things like that. And I felt that people they had a closer sense of what the city was about. And as they got towards the province and then, you know, the country, they got further and further away as far as like in touch with their needs. So I think for the most part, municipal politics is a little bit closer to where people are because people tend to stay and live in that area. County, it's a little bit different, and I find it different here because I find people here also identify a lot with Prince George's County, and that you don't have that in other places. I mean, you kind of had that in, I was again from Los Angeles. You sort of had that, but not as much, and people saw, LA County as this huge thing, but LA City was big enough. So they could identify with that, sort of. But people here really identify with Prince George's County. And it's a very fascinating thing. And I don't know if it's because some cities aren't incorporated or what, but I find that there's a very close tie. So, but I think people here identify more with the city.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolfley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate your committing the time to being here this morning and potentially for serving the community in the future. Here's my question for you. To date, how have you chosen to serve the city of Bowie? For example, have you served on city committees, run for office, been on a homeowner association, PTA, or the like? And part two, how will that help you represent your future constituents?
Okay, I guess I have come to, some community meetings. I've also been a member of the Diversity Committee, and that was in 2017. And I was on that committee for a year, and I came to the events, and I helped the kids with the Martin Luther King contest, the pictures. I do some things that I can in the park, but I don't feed the animals. And I try to, I guess the only other way that I try to help my constituents is to help and support the small business people.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. What I'd like to tell you is two things. One is that, as I told you earlier, everything is videotaped here for presentation later. If someone were to have a discussion with you between now and Tuesday and Wednesday, when we're going to be finishing up, I would suggest you kind of keep this to yourself for your own benefit. I'd like to give you an opportunity to leave us with whatever thought you think would help us make a selection here.
Okay. I guess just to give you some background, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I lived in Toronto, and I worked for Greenpeace in Toronto, and I also worked for City Council for 6 years in Toronto, and I also worked as a mediator for a nonprofit conflict resolution community service, and that was it was nonprofit, it was community based in Toronto, and we did some conflict resolution with people who couldn't afford it, and we also did it for pay. So that's how we worked, and I did that for 3 years, and then I moved here to Bowie. And since I came to Bowie, I guess the reason that I joined the Diversity Committee is because it's something that I could relate to, but also it's a way of me wanting to get to know the community. And I think that's the only way that I know how is through, municipal service. And I've always done that kind of service. That's why I feel I'd make a good city councilor. I'm good with people. I'm good doing public service. I have taught, I taught ESL for 4 years in Laos. And I think the work that I do the best is working with people, getting people through conflict, but also showing people where to get their services. And that's what I did when I worked during my time at City Hall in Toronto. So I don't know what more I can say. I'd be eager to do
That's
it.
good.
I'm really excited. And if you do need letters of reference, I can get you a letter of reference from Victor Ramirez, who was the senator in Hyattsville, and one of our school trustees. So that's if you need that.
Yeah. All right, well, we thank you for giving us some time this morning. We appreciate your interest.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
You guys have a good weekend.